Yes, it is the first day of 2015, and this is the first video of 2014, and it's being spent looking back on the best albums, at least to me, for 2014. As always, I welcome all of you guys' opinions in the comments of what you thought was the best album. But once again, this is my opinion, so kindly please try to respect it, please. I will count down from 15 to 1. So for 15 is, and feel free to make jokes on this in the comments because I thought this was ironic when I made the list. Shady 15. Definitely a marked improvement over, well, I guess you can't compare it to Eminem's solo album for 2012 because this is with the whole label. But the main Slaughterhouse brought the fire. Yellow Wolf was killing it. Eminem came back with some of that fire that he used to have before he came back with Relapse. We're not even gonna talk about that. The only gripe is that if you're playing both discs back to back, the album will kind of drag on for you a bit, especially once you get into the classic songs that you really know. And if you're new and don't know those songs, yeah, that's really going to drag on for you because you'll wonder what the heck you are hearing right now. And that's pretty much it. Overall, was solid. Now, for 14 is I've never really considered this artist a rapper. I felt she was more of a pop artist with the kind of sound that she had. But this album definitely made me see her as more of a hip hop artist. Nicki Minaj with the Pink Print. It's another album that I was kind of iffy about. It's when the singles started rolling out. I loved Pills and Potions, Anaconda. I hated the ever loving mess out of when it came out. I like it more hearing it in the album, but it's still not one of my favorite songs and still kind of a speed bump for me. It's mainly that cocky outro of the song. Only was definitely a banger. Bed of Lies was a very honest song. And what puts it on the list for me is that it's, for the most part, it's a very honest album. And it's Nicki letting out some demons that she had, like songs like All Things Go, I Lied, The Crying Game, the aforementioned Bed of Lies, By a Heart with Meek Mill. It's very honest songs, and they're honestly some of my favorites. And the tracks with Ariana Grande and Beyonce are just two fire songs that you will constantly keep on repeat. Like I still have the Ariana Grande collab on repeat right now. It's probably in my top 25 most played on iTunes at this point. 13. I don't think anybody knew what to expect from this album when T.I. put the subtitle of the motion picture on this album. We had no idea what we were going to get, especially considering what side of the fence you're on. Trouble Man was an average album. At least that's how I see it. Paperwork was a definite step up. Yes, the album's track list is bloated with guests, some of which we can probably do without. Looking at you, Rick Ross. But it doesn't take away from the album when you look at it as how it's set up. It definitely does sound like, as he said in the interviews before the album, it does sound like a motion picture. Songs like About the Money and New National Anthem, No Mediocre, carry that party vibe. There's tracks on there, hot, like with an R&B feel, like Private Show with Chris Brown, which is one of my favorites. Let Your Heart Go with the Dream. It's a very it's a very cohesive album. That's something that I always enjoy seeing with albums, is that they are very, very cohesive, and it's like just not a bunch of broken up beats that just like slam into each other. Like the only thing is that on some songs, T.I.'s lyrics are falling off a bit, but for the most part, they're right where they need to be, right where they should be. And to me, it's one of his best albums since Paper Trail. Even though I enjoyed No Mercy, this is his best he's done since Paper Trail. And that's a very, very good standpoint, just in case you, for some reason, haven't heard that album. 12. I could probably just say 3 words, and you would know what album I'm about to pull out of the stack. Shake It Off. Yes, Taylor Swift, you got it right. Taylor Swift I've always liked, even when her albums were 100% country, and even when the pop stuff started getting mixed into the albums. It's most noticeably on 2012's Red with stuff like We Are Never Getting Back Together, and 2012. No, I mean, not 20. I'm thinking of a Chris Brown album. 22, my bad. But this was getting introduced as her first all pop album. And when we started getting the singles like Shake It Off, Out of the Woods, we started to get to hear that we really weren't getting any country with this album. It was going to be an all pop sounding album. And when the songs started leaking out on iTunes, I wasn't getting disappointed with the songs. I was loving it. Then the entire album came out, and I was like, this is Taylor Swift's best album. Not taking away from any of her past albums. Like, her past albums were good, but they always had 2 or 3 dud songs. I felt like we could have trimmed up the album a little bit. But this one was fire from start to finish. I was never bored with the album. It didn't have any of the patches where in her past albums where I was just waiting for the song to end to get to the next one. It was amazing from beginning to end, and to me, it's her best album that she's done yet. So I applaud Taylor Swift for that. Number 11. Before we get to the top 10. Now, I don't really know how to introduce this next one because it's one I was iffy on, especially since the album that preceded it I thought was complete crap. But Chris Brown, you redeemed yourself. X. Finally coming out in 2014 after a year's worth of delays, and was it 1, 2, 3? 3 singles that ended up being deluxe edition filler. The album's life got kicked back into gear when Loyal dropped, and while I initially hated that song, the clean version made me like it. Freaking sue me on having the clean version. I like it better that way. And the album itself is so much of an improvement over the trash titled Fortune that it had to make the best list. It is while it does still have dud songs, it doesn't have the amount of dud that made up Fortune, and for that I'm just thankful. And if you're still iffy on the album, look up Loyal, look up songs on 12 Play, look up Don't Be Gone Too Long, and I guarantee those 3 songs alone will make you want to check the whole album out. Oh, and Drunk Texting. Drunk Texting is a fabulous end to that album. And now we come to the top 10 of 2014. Now 10, I don't have a hard copy of. This was a late purchase for me because I was iffy on it. I only have it digitally. And really, it probably shouldn't even be on this list because it's more of a greatest hits album. But I don't really care because some of what was on there I hadn't heard. There's 2 new songs on it and a video. So screw it. I'm putting it on there. Selena Gomez's For You. At this point, we should all have heard The Heart Wants What It Wants. That is an amazing and beautiful song. I love it to death. And this is actually her last album for her current label, Hollywood Records. She's now with Interscope. So this is how she capped off with the last label. It's all of her best songs and singles from not just her solo album, but from all her albums with The Scene. Come and Get It, Slow Down. A Year Without Rain is there in remixed form, which I actually kind of like. Round and Round, Falling Down. Tell Me Something I Don't Know. All the songs that you probably jammed out to on her albums are there. And the other new song, Do It, is I love it. It's definitely a club song. Oh, and if you got annoyed on the third Scene album when My Dilemma 2.0 never came out, that's on here as well. So just a little heads up for you guys. Number 9. Now you're probably wondering why I have my normal Strange necklace on. Well, here's the first Strange album of the countdown. And I can't wait to get the hate from the Strange family on where this is placed. Ritz, Next to Nothing. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy Ritz's music, but his debut album, while it was good, I didn't think it was necessarily the classic that I've been hearing it was. It definitely had potential to be there, but you gotta have a spot on album for me to consider it a classic, and Johnny Bounty still had dud tracks on it to me. Freaking sue me. Next to Nothing, though, improved on that. Out of 16 songs, I do not have the iTunes songs on there, so yes, 16. Out of 16 songs, really, there's only song I can do without is the song Blow, but I get why it's on the album. I get where he's going with this. And from the second you turn on the album, it's high energy all the way through. Even when you get to slower songs that have Mike Posner on the chorus, it still keeps that energy due to Ritz's flow in lyrics. And it's just overall, it was a nice way to cap off a year of Strange releases. And I hope to see more of what he can do in 2015. So hats off to Ritz. I'm gonna start losing my voice halfway through this video, and I still got 8 more albums to go through. Speaking of which, number 8. If you've never heard of Christina Perri, you've obviously never heard Jar of Hearts, because while it is a depressing song, that's also a beautiful song. After 3 years from her debut album, she came back in 2014 with a beautiful, and I mean beautiful, sophomore album. Head or Heart. From the second the lead single Human dropped, this album was made. I was anticipating this album, and then the release came. I listened to it, and it was amazingly beautiful. Like, I didn't know what to expect for the second album. I was just hoping it would be more upbeat than the first. It was all that and then some, with songs like the aforementioned Human, Burning Gold, my favorite song on there. The words, it's all I have to describe it is amazing. And like, I eagerly await her third album. Also, Christina, thanks for the favorites on Twitter when the album dropped. 7. One of the biggest things to happen with Strange Music this year, outside of the shocking departures from the label, was their new signee by the name of Murs. Murs I had never heard of, but after he got signed, I did a little research, and I eagerly awaited his first project. Then we found out it was a collab with Strange Music, signed with Strange Music artist Mayday, which resulted in the collab album Murs Day. And god dang if they didn't make a fire album. And it was definitely, if you were getting sick of like Mayday's 2 albums on Strange, Take Me to Your Leader and Believers, they talked about real stuff, but the overall vibe of them, well, it had they had the high energy moments, but for the most part, it had those. They were mainly somber albums, but it fit with the real stuff that they were talking about on the album. This one, whether it be they just wanted to do something different, or Murs came in and just kicked them kick them in the butt and say, hey, let's just do some party stuff. It is a straight, it is just a good time, fun album. It was a summer album, and it was my New Year's playlist. So that's right there should tell you something right there. And it's just, to me, Believers is still Mayday's best album, but as far as high as perfect as you could get with a collaboration album, this is where that's at. So I can't be too mad at it. I knew I should have had a glass of water with me before this video. Where are we at? 6. God dang. I love this chick. I love her vocals. And I love this album. And this is my favorite R&B. I bill it as R&B, and it's my favorite R&B album of 2014. Shout out Jhené Aiko for Sold Out. Jhené had cropped up on features with pretty much anyone you can name since 2013. J. Cole, Drake, had her EP Sail Out, which was enough to get you to anticipate the debut album. And then the debut album dropped, and it was, I don't know how many albums I've said beautiful for, but that's the only one I'm able to come up with right now. Especially considering right now this is a 16-minute video. But it was epic. And it was beautiful how her daughter was on the album. Her deceased brother was on the album on the song Promises. And outside of them, the only feature that you had really was Common. I'm not counting Cocaine 80s Until Love and Die. That's background vocals. And even when she was singing on the album, she was doing some good rapping on the album on Pretty Bird with Common. And all I have to say is perfection. Pure perfection. Now, the next two on this list, I will say, I never mentioned. This is where I had the time frame that I wasn't recording, but this is now at top 5 status, so you need to believe these are very good albums. So for 5, if you've ever heard the song Stay High, you know this artist. Tavlo, Queen of the Clouds. I got the album out of curiosity once I warmed up to the Stay High song, because initially I was iffy on it, but I warmed up to it. I like it. And anybody who knows me knows I enjoy love songs, but even more than that, I enjoy the occasional concept album, especially if it's a well done concept. And the album has this well thought out concept of the stages of a relationship, from when it starts, from when the intimate of the relationship, from when you're in love to when it ends, and the breakup stuff. Each part of the album is split with 4 songs each, with the intro and interludes and stuff to tell you what section of the album is coming up. And it's a very well thought out concept. It's a well done concept, and it's one I thoroughly enjoy hearing. Because I'm getting very tired of calling numbers out, and my throat is always starting to kill me. I find it appropriate that I'm talking about this album at the same time my friend just dropped a video for a Fayetteville cipher, because J. Cole's from Fayetteville. 2014 Forest Hills Drive. There was no way I could not include this. 1, because it's fire. 2, I don't feel like hearing hate comments that it ain't on here. But it would make it anyway, because no one knew about this until a month before the drop. Then the album came out, and J. Cole showed why he can do that. You guys know I love when artists are being honest in their music, and it's all honesty in the album. J. Cole has spent those fire lyrics that we know from him, and he's just being honest about him growing up in Fayetteville, his adolescence, and then he's talking about how you know, what's been happening since he got fame, like what's different, it's just one of those kind of albums that you hear it and you keep rewinding it back to hear what he's saying. Like, did he really just say that? Like, it's one of those type albums where the lyrics will just blow your mind, and I love that. Sorry, guys. I'm not. You guys know I'm not used to doing videos this long, and they're normally only like 10 minutes, so bear with me. Thank God it's almost done though. 3. It's no secret to y'all on this channel that I love this girl's music. I think she's one of the best pop stars, and she's my second favorite pop artist next to Demi Lovato. So you're never getting near my number 1 from Demi. Ariana Grande, my everything. Jesus Christ. I always judge how an artist is going to be from the second album. The second album is the album that could either make or break you. That hasn't changed in music. And her second album somehow got even more perfect over the first one, which I immediately said was perfect on first listen. That should tell you something right there. All the rappers that were on the album took nothing away from it. Even the collab with A$AP Ferg, which I dreaded to hear when I heard this track list. It's one of my favorite songs on there. And we're not even going to talk about how beautiful the song with The Weeknd is. So we're going to leave it at that. Now, this should probably be, well, I just hang my necklace in the camera for the last 2 albums because they're both from Strange Music, so don't expect variety on the label from these 2. However, you're going to be shocked at what did get number 2. Tech 9 gets number 2 with Strangulation. That was the first review I did when I restarted this YouTube channel. And like I said then, my opinion on it hasn't changed, and it still gets constant repeats because, like I said then, it is a near perfect album. You guys know that it's huge. I said the album had huge energy through it. It could have used more Brother Lynch, who is one of my favorite Strange artists. But aside from that and the one dud track that I didn't like, which one, it was fire from beginning to end. Even when you added in the deluxe songs, it never felt dragged on. But maybe that's because I'm just used to tags along behind albums. So you're probably wondering, if Tech got number 2, who got number 1? Well, his artist beat him at his own game. Cess Crew gets Best Album of the Year for me with Codename Ego Stripper. This was the one album that I did a video for, and even if I'd done videos for the others in the list, this would have been the only hip-hop album that I would have given a 10 to, and I did give this perfect because to me, it was perfect. It was Cess Crew trying new things from their debut on Strange. They tried out new beats, tried out new flows, and you can especially hear the different flows on the song Power Play with, ironically, Tech 9. And it was just an overall experience. Cess Crew was already one of the artists that I enjoyed, and then this album just made them one of my more favorite artists on Strange, and I eagerly await their next work, whether it be an EP or full album. And there you have it, the top 15 of 2014. God. Hopefully, 2015 already looking for some good music releases so far. I know Lupe Fiasco and Neo are dropping albums this month. Tech is dropping in March. Usher's supposed to drop an album. Kanye just dropped a song today. So definitely that album should be coming soon. But until I get a chance to do another video, I'm going to go give my throat some vocal rest because This is the longest video I've done, and it's not used to it. So, Strangely Musical.